Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me as always is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo with his Georgia Bulldogs cap.
Yep, had to put it right there, people see. The weirdest thing was, though, I liked both teams when they were in different conferences. So I had a Texas T-shirt on and this hat. But I kind of lean toward Bulldogs.
Whoever loses, you just throw that away.
I tear it up and give it to somebody after I tear it up, though. Because things are worth more money, apparently, torn up. Like if you take your jeans and, take a razor blade and scratch them all up so they're kind of, that's like
it's the Banksy theory, right?
Yeah. It's like $120. You get a pair from Tractor Supply, it's, like $15.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's mostly what I have.
All right. Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club, 1732 Lakeshore Road, Manchester, New Hampshire, wilsonhillpistol.org. You can go onto the website and our monthly membership meetings, first Wednesday of every month, 7 p.m., and we have open membership. We do have one training on this calendar. It is November 9th. It is defensive shotgun. Should be a fun class. You can go online and you can ask for information. There's a little bit of issue with registering for the class right now online, so just send a message. Tonight, returning guest, Terry Roy.
How's it going?
Terry,
How you doing, Terry?
Representative Terry Roy.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah. Glad you can make it.
Always fun to get out of the sticks and come into the big
into the big city.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, where are we at since we last saw you? We're done with the session, right?
Yeah.
Veto day's all behind us.
Yeah.
How'd we do?
We did good. We overturned quite a few of his vetoes. We did good. Don't ask me what they all were because there were so many I can barely remember.
Really?
Yeah. I think we
good.
overturned like 7 or 8 of vetoes.
That could be a record.
Yeah. Well, no. I think actually our first term when the Democrats were we upheld more vetoes that time.
Yeah, that's right. Very true.
Yeah, but we some of them had to do with things like bureaucratic power that he was not willing to cede, that we wanted to kind of claw back to the legislature. So there was some of that. I think one of them had to do with landfills and that ever-present debate about how close to the water can we put septic tanks, things like that.
Yeah, typical things that have gone on.
Yeah, that don't affect most people unless you happen to own property on Winnipesaukee.
Right, exactly.
So these vetoes are now overridden. Do they go in effect January 1st?
Well,
or how
depends
does this
on
work?
depends on the date. So first of all, not all of them were overturned in the Senate. So we were all cheering, yeah, we did it, and then the Senate took them, and I think they only overturned probably a quarter of what we did. So. But the ones that we both overturned, depending on what the date was in the bill for when it took effect. If there was no specific date, it would be within 6 months or 60 days after he signs it. So, yeah. But in any event, that's behind us now. Anything new will be new. No more old bills.
How about the committees? Well, you think if we hold the House, you'll probably be in the same committee, right? Or do you want to try something new?
No, I'm happy where I am. But it's really up to Speaker of the House.
Yeah,
So that's the internal politics within the politics. Yeah. We have the race for the Speaker going on at the same time.
So who do you think is going to be the Speaker? I mean, there are a couple of people this time, I believe, right?
2 that I'm aware of.
Terrio and
there's obviously Sherman Packard,
right,
and Lenny. I can't even remember his name. That's how much I want to vote for him for Speaker.
So I guess we know who you're going to vote for.
Yeah.
So there's a little discourse about whether or not Sherman should be the Speaker next time around?
There's a faction that's not entirely happy. They feel like he didn't stand up to the Democrats enough, considering we had a majority. But
of 3?
Well, that's my point, and a lot of folks understand this. We were actually in the minority the whole term, and people don't understand that. If you count the guys who vote with the Democrats consistently, the guys who don't show up, we were in the minority just about every session day. So for people to say, yeah, you should have really hammered it, he couldn't. He had to deal with them. He had to, he had to work with them. And if he'd have been a hardliner, we wouldn't have got the budget passed like we wanted. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that the rank and file members don't know. Because trust me, Sherman Packard's a tough guy, and if he could, he'd love to. But
we've had him on the show.
Yeah, he's a quiet guy, but he's smart and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was a lot of emotion. I think, though, when everybody sits down and has a chance to actually listen and understand what happened, I think they'll stick with the winning team, assure them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw that Steve Shutloff had his last vote. He's
Shurtleff.
Yeah, he's retiring.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of good things for our state. And, and he's a former MP, I believe, and he's been in town forever.
Yeah.
So I wish him the best. He was always good to me, got me on the committee I wanted to be on, got me, just helped me a lot, and he didn't have to do that. So
no, he was a fair guy because he was my first. He was our speaker when we get elected.
Yep.
And I expected, oh God, what's this going to be like?
Yep.
Nicest guy, very fair.
Yep.
Obviously, he was biased towards his side.
Sure.
But you're going to be.
Yep.
But he was not unfair about how he dealt with stuff.
I agree. So I wish him luck.
I do as well.
Yeah. So what about the other races? What do you? We can talk about the big race, the president race. We can talk about that if you like. And we've seen. I saw they had a Trump parade this past weekend. I think I saw Christy Noble had.
Was it a Trump? Was it a parade or a Trump train?
No. They were driving around.
Yeah,
a train.
Oh yeah, train.
They
right.
do the
exactly.
Trump train thing.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of those in Deerfield. I feel like also the towns I represent, Auburn, Chester, Deerfield, Candia, are all Republican, pretty solidly. Deerfield is the closest one that's kind of mixed.
That's where you live, though.
Yeah, I live in Deerfield. Yeah, and I consistently win. So I try not to go out and bother people every 4 years by hammering on their door and stuff. I just tell them, look at my record. If you're happy, you still want me, I'll go. If you don't,
that's a good attitude to take.
How do you think things are shaping up at the state level? I mean, we got Ayotte and Craig going at each other. We got a very slim margin in the House. How do you think that's going?
That's much harder to forecast than the presidential election because in New Hampshire, people are very strange. They will send an entire Republican, House, Senate, governor, and then 2 staunch liberals to Washington. So it's so hard to predict what they're going to do. So are they going to go with Trump and reverse that and go with Democrats here? I don't know. I mean, I feel like the people of New Hampshire understand what the Democrats are offering, and they ain't buying. And I think we're gonna do okay. I think we should actually pick up probably 15, 20 seats in the House. I'm hoping.
Yeah, that would be great. How about getting back to what Josh said, though? How do you think the governor's race is?
Again, I think I don't think she ever had a chance, to be honest with you.
She being
Craig.
Okay.
Manchester has been.
She's backed by a lot of money. I mean, she was in Massachusetts fundraising just this last weekend.
Yeah,
I don't understand why she can't fundraise in New Hampshire. Okay, I do understand. I'm just being sarcastic.
Well, that's really that ties the whole thing, though. Is her and the Democrats want New Hampshire to be a bedroom community of Boston.
Yep.
That's all they want. This is just a place for them to come buy expensive houses and not pay property tax or pay less taxes on all their stuff. They don't really care about us. And so they want to install the train. They want to pay for this, pay for that. So they want New Hampshire to be Massachusetts North, and that's really it. So I don't think, though, money notwithstanding, she ever had a chance because Manchester's been the focus of everything bad with New Hampshire for the last 10 years. I mean, until Ruiz took over, it's been constantly, whether it was the drugs, whether it was violence, whether it was homelessness, everything.
Right.
That's Joyce Craig. That's
we're not
what you get.
the capital, but we are kind of the center of New Hampshire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
population-wise, and everything that happens in New Hampshire happens as an extension of Manchester.
Absolutely,
pretty much.
I always say that.
And I mean, we've been hammering on her for her entire term as mayor here. I mean, and it's so visible just walking down the street.
Oh, the difference. She's gone.
It really is. I mean, the difference before and after her, right? I mean, you could, if you were someone like me who's been in New Hampshire for decades and used to walking down Elm Street,
right?
Elm Street was one of the nicest downtowns in the country, and I've traveled all over the country. I think there's only like 4 states I haven't hit, right? All the major cities, and Elm Street was just a great place to be. And it wasn't 6 months into her first term where things just were torn apart.
Yeah.
Literally torn apart. I mean, But anyway, you make a good point. Everything's centered around Manchester, and being able to focus on her record here, hopefully, is enough to kill her candidacy.
Yeah,
So.
I feel like, I mean, it should be a layup for Kelly Ayotte. Do you want New Hampshire to look like Manchester looked?
Right.
And hopefully the folks up in the North Country and towards the west, we got a lot of liberal areas in the western area.
We do. And what's scary is they always
they-
think it won't affect them. Whatever happens, it's not going to impact them, but it will. It will. It's going to impact it. I predict if they were to take the governor's office and the Senate and the House, we would be Massachusetts within 6 months. By next summer, we would basically, for all intents and purposes, be Massachusetts. From gun laws to taxation to you name it, they would keep it right
sanctuary state.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already been floating, things that are considered crazy in New Hampshire, such as, paychecks for legislators, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've already floated that idea.
Yeah. I don't know where they'll get the money.
But taxes, right?
Yeah,
They
exactly.
want to, they want to enact an income tax, and the instant they enact a tax like that, they're going to give themselves the excuse to start paying the legislators.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, the legislatures deserve everything that they get, but the fact that they only have the $100 a year, it gives most of us this comfort level that the people that are there want to be there. They're there for a reason.
For good or ill,
As opposed to that's your foothold into the career politician track, right?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what will happen.
Yeah.
People often ask me, you don't see the level of corruption in New Hampshire politics that you see other places. And the reason is because you'd stick out like a sore thumb. If some lobbyist started kicking you tons of thousands of dollars, it would be noticed pretty quickly. Why is he driving that $50,000 or $80,000 car?
Yeah.
He only makes $100 here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would stick out.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to. And plus, we're so diluted. You'd have to buy off a lot of politicians to get something. It would cost you a lot of money.
Who was it? It was last week. Was it last week or the week before?
Matthew Bartlett.
That our legislature is actually the third largest legislature in the
English
world.
speaking one. Yep. Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I knew it was the largest in the country amongst all the
No, in
state
the world,
legislatures, but I didn't realize that.
it's Turkey and England are the
Really?
other two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we could use a little bit more English Parliament, though. I think it would be more entertaining.
Yeah. So we can get up and
I would like to hear the speaker just once hammer the gavel and say, "Order! Order!"
climb over the chairs. Right?
My favorite part would be all the backhanded insults that the
yes.
English give each other.
They're beautiful.
Those are fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah.
So I think that the ads have been horrible on both sides. I'm tired of them doing that. And so Joyce will lie about something, and Kelly will immediately have a response, knowing that was probably going to happen, that she was going to be called out when it was all false. But the problem is that I see is they're going to have, I think they're having one more debate now. They had a debate the other day. Can't remember where that was. And then they're going to have a WMUR debate next Wednesday, I believe.
Oh, really?
It starts Wednesday. So they're going to have the governor's race, the congressional race, and then the Senate race. Not the Senate race, rather.
I think at
both
this
parties.
point it's too late. In my mind,
I
right
think
now, unless you get caught, with a dead body in your trunk.
The debate's being too late? Yeah, it's too late. in
It's
this
too late to
cycle.
I agree.
impact
Yep.
the voters.
No one's gonna
People are
change their
voting
mind.
already in a lot of states.
Maybe that's why they agreed to do it so late.
It could be, yeah. They
That's a
figured
good
it wouldn't
point.
matter.
Right?
Yeah, that's a really
Like
good
the
point.
further we push it out, the more we know that everybody's just made up their mind.
If there's someone who claims to not who they're voting for at this point, I recommend some type of evaluation. How could you have lived through the last 4 years knowing the polar opposites of these candidates and not be able to say who you want? I mean,
the thing that bugs me is that I heard Camilla Harris on the news a little while ago before I came in, and she's talking about unity, that she's going to bring everyone together. I'm thinking, didn't we hear that before?
What kind of unity
Biden?
language did she use
Obama.
today? She said something very unifying today. What was it?
Hitler.
No
I think. Hitler.
idea.
She said Trump was a fascist, and
And a
he was
Hitler.
literally. She used the word literally Hitler. Kamala, I'm sorry, but you need to go and look up definition of literally.
Oh, maybe she believes in reincarnation. I mean, well, is she Indian? Well, I'm not sure what her. She could possibly believe, in all seriousness, that he is Hitler reincarnated.
Is she Indian?
Or
if she was
what,
Indian, she wouldn't be working at McDonald's, right? I mean,
no, Trump works at
70
McDonald's. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, no, she was the first Indian, I think, elected to Senate. Right, Indian American, but I don't know if she's practicing. No, it's not Buddhism. What is it? It's
Hindu.
Hinduism.
Hindu or
they
Sikh.
believe in reincarnation, I believe.
Do you remember? I can't remember. I won't mention a rep's name that was in the House, but
You mean Mangy Booty?
yes. When you could pick, they were in charge then, so they would pick the person to say the blessing.
Oh, I remember
before.
that day. Yes.
And she had one of her people come on, and he did it in Sanskrit. So none of us knew what he was saying. So we all, many of us figured, why are we even in here listening to this?
Well, I had to leave because the Pope told me I couldn't listen to that stuff. But it was interesting for a little while. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what.
So so let's get back to the state. So that race, I think we're in agreement that Kelly should win it.
Yeah.
She should win that. How about the two congressional races? Do you think we even have a shot at either one, or?
I think I would love to see Lily win. I just don't think, based on the district, she's going to be able to pull it off. I hope so. But looking at the numbers, just strictly numbers.
Yeah.
And it's that Western district that I was talking about.
Keene
Western
and-
New Hampshire.
When we did the redistricting, the powers that be, I didn't really have a part in that. I believe that the way it was set up is one of them leans Republican.
The other leads Democrat.
Leans Democrat,
Right.
or at least centrist, but more.
Right.
So I just don't think. Basically, we've got a good chance with the other district. But
With Prescott.
Yeah.
We've had Russ on here,
Yeah.
and it's kind of interesting. I saw after their debate, they're not hammering each other. They're telling people what they can do.
no way.
Exactly, right.
That's crazy.
And so that was another ad I saw where Kelly was.
Maybe that's not a great sign. See, I see when you get someone like Craig just lashing out with lie after lie after lie, and just
people start believing it.
Well, that's the first part, but the fact that she's lashing out means that she's reaching, she's panicked, right?
Yes, I agree.
They know that they're in trouble, so they lash out, just like at the national level.
Sure.
Whereas if you've got a race where folks are actually running on their own merits, I feel like we're going to have a closer call there.
I agree. I mean, when you have when you have Kamala calling him Hitler today.
Yeah, anybody.
That's the biggest stretch. I mean, you can't get. That's literally break glass in a case of emergency.
She has not once given a speech where she's touted her own record as vice president.
Yeah, she can.
Right, so it's all about lashing out, and so that's where I see the Prescott Pappas. These guys are actually trying to compete with each other, whereas Craig is on the offensive and Ayott's on the defensive, right? She's just responding to attacks, and that's no good either.
Yeah, it's difficult because at the end of the day, if someone comes up to the average voter and says, "Well, what's her policy? What's her policy?" I don't know, but they hate each other. That's basically the takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, it's all. You can't trust this one, you can't trust that one. That's the new word this time around. How can you trust that person? And my feeling is that, let's look at records then.
Yeah.
Let's put that aside. I'm not sure a lot of people will do that. The thing that I'm interested in is that neither one of them on none of the politicians that we're involved with, right, say anything about how they're going to help seniors out.
Yeah.
None of them.
No.
And that frustrates the heck out of me. I mean, I would have loved to introduce a bill that when you reach 70 or 75, you only pay 30% of the school tax. You're not going to step away completely, but I've paid, school tax for lots of generations.
Yeah.
And I just think we have to. There are some states that do that, actually.
There are some states that have tax relief for senior citizens because your kids aren't going to school anymore.
And we do, actually. It's just that inflation and the spending in the schools is outstripping. Because we're taxing seniors out of their homes.
Yeah, they are.
To me, that's the greatest injustice.
And that's,
people who have worked their whole life, paid into the system their whole lives, finally pay off their house, and they can enjoy their retirement.
Yep.
And guess what? new tax bill,
Yep.
your Social Security is
in
not going to pay.
Goffstown alone, every one of the new taxes was passed. There was a couple of minor ones that weren't, but the end result is that the average tax bill in my town has gone up $1,300.
Yep.
And so we're going to get that next tax year,
Yep.
after the last town meeting, and that's horrible. You know, one of the big arguments was is that folks are not going to be able to stay there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard,
and a lot of it is the school. The school is something like 64%
Yep.
of
70 in my town.
our tax
65
burden in our
Yep.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy that continues.
And never mind, that's the school. We've talked about education on this show quite a bit too.
Yeah.
We've got school systems that are turning out high school seniors that can't read.
Yeah.
You know, and that's here in New Hampshire, right? I'm not going to
With record spending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what are you spending that money on? And then we go and we see the money being
Salaries and
spent on a lot of
administrators.
salaries and a lot of woke programs, and not focusing on, you know, the key items: reading, math, science.
What's interesting is I really want to delve into next term. It might be my first year, but my second year, I'd like to introduce legislation around this whole default budget thing.
Yep.
Because I feel like New Hampshire voters are getting really kind of shafted on that. When
Because the default budget goes up.
It's higher or something.
No matter what. And
They
every
sneak
town
stuff into
plays
it.
the game. They play the game where they say, okay, the default budget is going to be XYZ. So what we're going to do is we're going to draft a new budget and play with some numbers and pretend that we're leaving that out and leaving that out, but we're putting in something that's new and required. And the new budget is only $1 million more than the default budget. And then that becomes their excuse.
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
but the default budget always has the pay raises in it, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and so I'm sitting here, I'm watching my town administrators get an 8% pay raise year after year after year, and inflation's at 8%, and the rest of the town, you've got people standing up saying, I haven't had a raise in 4 years,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
every time I do have a raise, it's only 3%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it gets taxed before I see it.
Yet the default budget is making everybody who works for the town filthy rich.
A lot of towns.
I'm not-
no, but
I'm
you're
exaggerating,
absolutely. But the point is the school has become.
I'm
back-
hoping that's what you want to address with the default budget.
It is.
Yeah.
The school has become, back to our earlier conversation, the sacred cow of you can't touch it. You know, if you ask, oh, you're against children, you know, well, wait a minute, no, I'd like to get into, show me where you're spending this money. If it's for kids, great, but show me what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's always, nope, that's mandated, we can't talk about it. That's a big one they like to throw out there as well. We can't discuss individual
Like
children.
the new $3 million theater that our high school just put in
Yeah, that was
like 2 years
necessary.
ago,
Wow.
right? And was the theater necessary or were the special programs necessary? Which one, right?
Yeah, it's special education, and I don't want to demonize them totally because a lot of this comes from the federal government. You know, this fair and adequate education ruling from the Supreme Court all those years ago. I'd like to see the Supreme Court revisit that. That was another decision, kind of in the vein of Roe versus Wade, where it's not really in here, but we're going to find it. By putting that in the law, what they've done is they gave the federal bureaucracy the right to say, this is what you have to teach, and figure out how to pay for it. Well, in New Hampshire, we only have one wallet, and that's property tax.
Right.
So what happens is the locals say, well, the state's downshift.
No.
We're not. We never had it in the first place. And if you want us to pay for it, you realize we don't have a printing press up here. We're going to have to tax somebody to get that money.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, we don't care. It's not us. That's why this new thing is they want to do this cost-sharing model where they tax the richer towns and spread the money around like Robin Hood. And unless I got in a debate about it, and I said, here's what we'll do. I will support the state paying 100% for education in every town if the teachers' unions all negotiate with one state negotiator. Never mind all these little towns.
Right.
We have no control over these raises you give. They have professional negotiators from unions who come in there, who meet with people who have never negotiated a thing in their life.
Right.
And they get hosed
With
every
the town
time.
selectmen and whatnot.
Exactly.
And they do it in closed-door sessions
Yes.
so that we have no idea what the negotiations are. We don't know what the
Exactly.
details of the contract are.
That's correct. So if we have a professional state negotiator, everyone goes on the state plan, and we set the salaries for teachers across the state, all right, we'll pay for it. But until then, we're not going to tax other people to pay for what you decided to give away to your teachers. It's
The other thing
fair.
is too. I mean, that's
needless
obviously
to say they didn't like that idea.
But you're going to bring it forward anyway.
No, I'm going to bring forward the default budget.
The default budget.
Yeah, I think much more transparency needs to happen in there. We need to limit what is in the default budget, and it should only be things that the voters saw and approved.
Yeah.
And that is that. The raises, the voters approve it. You know, whether you like it or not, it comes to the town at the meeting, a new
Right.
salary. So if they want it, good, they got to pay for it.
Yep.
But there's a lot of stuff snuck in there that they didn't approve. And we need to make sure that those are audited, I think.
Yeah.
They should be audited. Every time a town has to go to a default budget, there should be an audit done. And they're told this is what your actual, because right now they say what it is, and you can never figure out where they got the numbers. And I'm on the budget committee. I'm like, what do you mean it's this much?
In your town?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I've had enough of
the
that.
The thing that bothers me too is that got a lot of complaints tonight. I've just realized.
Yeah, let's get positive.
is that, you know, I heard somebody say, there was a conversation going on like this about seniors and taxes are too high. And the comment that was made by a teacher was, then the old people ought to just move out of town.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And where should they go?
Well, this is the point. I mean, you know, so I've been there 20 years, and where can I afford to go? And why should I
exactly.
get rid of? So they
What
say
you need to do
this,
is
downsize.
Take down their name and give it to someone like me, so that when that person who made that comment gets old, I can go to them and say, "Where do you plan on going?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to make room.
Well,
Read it.
they said
Get out of town.
They said just downsize. I said downsize. I can't downsize any more than I am
And
now.
again, none of your business.
And first of all, you shouldn't be telling me what to do with it. You know,
it's none of your business what I do with my money.
Right, right.
Except
But
for
anyway,
give it to them.
But to your point, this is what goes on. And I was a selectman as well, and in small towns, rather than going back to a brand new budget starting at zero, they want to put more onto the percentages that they're already getting paid.
The thing that bothers me about you mentioned the raises, right? So let's say you know, and it's not just the teachers' raises; it's you know,
Employees
Department
of
of
the
Public
town.
Work and employees of the town, and so they negotiate these contracts. And don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with people getting raises. What I have a problem with is a 4 or 5 year contract on raises.
Yeah.
Where, okay, their contract is up, so now we're going to negotiate a new 5-year contract where they get 4% this year and 4 more and 4 more and 4 more. And so you have this step raising system that is not based on merit.
No.
It's not right. And once you say yes to it now that 4%, 4%, 4%,
It's exponential,
4% becomes part of next year's default budget and the next default budget. So now your default budget is based on something that was voted on 5 years ago.
Yeah. In the meantime, something like
that's
COVID
the problem
happens.
that I have. If you're going to negotiate new raises, do it once a year. I know that sounds like a pain in the butt. They're like, oh, it takes so long. It's such a hassle. Well, again, the hassle isn't yours. The hassle is my wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to vote for a raise, you know what? I got a 3% raise this year because the economy was good. So let's give a raise to the town employees this year. Right? Next year comes along. I didn't get a raise. I really can't afford my taxes to go up. No, I'm going to vote against the town employees getting a raise.
Yeah.
Right. That's how it should be. That's how I feel like it should be. But if we vote on a raise now, now you get these people who renegotiate their contracts. Oh, the economy's going to tank. You know, all the experts are saying that things are going to go in the toilet. So if we negotiate a contract now that's a 10-year contract, we'll be safe.
Yeah.
While the rest of the town has to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree.
I don't like the fact that the default budget includes things that were voted on years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's the other thing. Most people don't understand what the state does and what the towns do. Like they complain about the state, you said it, about budgets in the town, and they think it's the state's fault for pushing things down to the town. they don't understand that. It's like I see people running for office who say, well, I'm going to lower our property tax. Oh, that's really nice, but you're not going to do it at the State House.
Yeah, that's not going to
You're going to do it. You got to do it in your town.
Yeah.
And
well, that's just it. You know, the town is, you know, you got a school budget that takes up 65%.
Oh, yeah.
And that's your town school budget. And then the rest of the taxes, the other 30 to 35%, more than half of that is at the town level. And the state is actually getting like what, 10, 15%?
Yeah.
Of your property taxes.
Yeah.
The rest of it is all at your town. You got to show up to your town meetings.
Absolutely.
Well, that money actually goes back to the town.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, the money the state gets, that percent, is what they give back to the town for the education bump up. You know, the adequacy money.
Adequacy.
So no money actually goes to the state at all. It all just gets it's washed.
Yeah.
So it's. Your point regarding the town budget is a yearly budget. Why is a contract more than that? Because we do it yearly instead of 5-year budgets because we have no idea what's going to happen next year.
Of course.
What our income's going to be, what our expenses are going to be, but we're locked into these labor contracts that, you know, too bad, you got to pay them, you know. And that's why a lot of towns, you're losing people, not because they moved out, because they got lost in a pothole that's so big because they can't fix their roads. I mean, some of the roads are so bad.
Yeah, and some people fix the roads.
It didn't used to be like that.
Some people fix the roads whether they need it or not.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like there's a section of the road
that I live
on.
That's that whole use it or lose it. Well, we got this government money for the year, and if we don't use every penny of our budget, then next year they won't give us as much. So so they come up with things to do that they don't have to do.
Work.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be a luxury because we don't have that money in my town. I know it costs like $1 million to do like a mile of road.
Yeah, paving.
Yeah, and that's only if you're going to do shim and overlay. If you're going to grind it down, you're talking more. You know, $1.25 million.
Right, exactly.
So it's enormously expensive to keep up with these roads, and when you let them go to the point of the potholes, you got to really grind the whole thing.
So we probably have 60% of the roads in my town are dirt.
And I remember growing up, living in Massachusetts, always admiring New Hampshire's roads. Whenever you come over the border, you go, blah, 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 all of a sudden, that's the way it was.
That's for the skiers and for the foliage people.
Yeah,
you know?
and it was always, because they managed their money right. But somewhere along the line, this education thing, and you can actually look at it, if you look at a graph of education spending in New Hampshire over the last 20 years, it goes up like this at some point.
There's no downswing on it.
No, but it's not even, like if you look at town budgets, it's kind of like this. The school budget goes like that, or straight up. And it's bad. And I think a lot of that, the towns are set up to fail because of federal mandates on special education. If they don't spend it, the parents will take them to court, and the town will have to pay one way or the other. I don't know what the answer is, you know. Everyone's like, well, maybe we just need to give in to taxes and do it. That's not the way to go because it never, ever is enough, ever.
Well, you know, see, that's the thing. If you go and you implement a state income tax, there's not a single town in this state, there's not a single school system that will lower their existing school taxes.
Oh, no,
it won't go down.
No, you'll have both now.
Right.
Yeah.
And they will continue to have the authority to raise my local taxes. So at that point, we will have one of the highest property tax rates in the country, in addition to sales tax or income tax.
The answer might be
the
privatization.
only reason we can say, hey, we've got high property taxes in New Hampshire, but we don't have income taxes and we don't have sales taxes.
Yeah.
And so we can say that's our trade-off.
Yeah.
But if we do either of those other routes, we're going to be still in the highest tier property taxes in the country, plus all of this other. We're going to be California.
Yeah, absolutely. Connecticut went down the same road, I believe.
Yeah, they did. I lived in Connecticut, and you know, they said, well, if we put an income tax, then we're going to lower the. It's going to be temporary. We're going to lower the sales tax, and we all bought it. You know, I was too young to even buy into it, but. Everybody bought into it, and guess what?
It's still there, and it's real
still
high.
there, and it's
I think I'd like to explore privatization. I mean, all these years, like I sent
of what?
Our public school system.
Oh, okay, school system.
So I sent my kid to Catholic school, from K to 12,
but you were still paying for a seat for him.
And I still paid for the seat, but you know, whatever. That's the game you play.
No, right.
But the point is though, they educated him much better than the public schools could have for half the price. if the private sector can do it cheaper and better, why are we continuing this game that we've been playing forever with our public school systems? Make them compete.
It's because
Control.
the Teachers Association
Exactly.
is allowed to negotiate these contracts
Exactly.
for the local cities.
Exactly. Let those teachers get jobs at a private company that sets up a private school. The city can contract, it can pick, and there's choice, competition based on grades. I think that the private sector has a place in this, and we've ignored them too long and said, well, if you're rich, you can do it. What if we let the private sector in and said, compete with this public school? You don't have to be rich. We wouldn't have this whole school choice argument anymore. This is the school, you know? I think that at some point we're going to have to look
Now
at
you're demanding accountability of all of these union teachers.
Yeah, I know.
I don't,
Sometimes
that's
I
not
go
going to
off.
fly, Terry.
Sometimes I get greedy.
Yeah, I mean, that's really an important subject, though, that we've talked about a lot on this show, but I don't see it getting any better.
No.
I see every argument is the same thing. I just responded to somebody and said, because they were saying that, you know, if you live in this town, that's where you should stay. And I'm saying, why should you be locked into a zip code for your education? And why, when they say, well, you're taking that money away from the state, it shouldn't follow the student? Oh, really? Well, what should we do with it? What do you want to do with it then?
How are we going to pay the teachers?
Exactly. How are we going to pay more money to the SAUs?
Yeah. And that's one of the big lies with the current system is that, oh, we're taking money away from, no, we're not. This is money that you wouldn't have got anyway. You know, your local tax money, you keep that. All they're taking is the money the state would have given you in that equalization money. Yeah. That's the only money that follows the student. They're not taking money from the town, but they lie.
Yeah, I mean, and we've had Kate Baker and Demers on, and they raise a lot of money for organizations to send kids to school. Why is that so bad? Why is somebody upset with having somebody do better?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you can't afford to buy a house in Bedford or Bow, and they have really great school systems, why shouldn't you be able to do that?
Yeah.
You know, I don't get it.
But that raises the point, though. We shouldn't have to be dependent. If I live in an apartment, a 3-story walk-up in Manchester, my kids shouldn't be entitled to less of a better education because I can't afford to move to Bow.
Exactly.
If we had a privatized school system, they would be competing for these students, and they would be producing much better students. Instead of just like, this is the status quo, a new crop coming in this year, we're going to turn them over just like, you know, and ship them out. And they're not reading, they can't do math.
Right. So shifting a little when you say privatization, we've got a real problem with hospitals because they've privatized them to one big group.
Yeah, well, that's monopoly stuff.
Well, but that's what the next step people might think that's going to be the next step if you privatize your education. Yeah. You know, but they're closing down hospitals, and we in this state cannot afford to have them closed because we're so rural. There's so many out here and out there. You know, we're fortunate we have Dartmouth, and we're fortunate we have all hospitals in Boston. Yeah. We're lucky that way. And some of those big corporations moved up here and bought out some of those hospitals, but even worse, they bought out practices. Yes. And that's made it even tougher now.
Yeah, there's no individual. The antitrust laws should be enforced, and a lot of times they're not. So when you can see one hospital buying up all the other hospitals, there's a reason we pass those laws. I mean, I'm not big on regulation and government control, but it does have a place, and one of them would be public safety. And if you're going to close down hospitals, that's an important issue. Like what happened, was it the Epping or the, just closing the hospital down. I mean, people are going, well, what do I do? I know people that have doctors there and they're like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do now.
And it's the same thing with pharmacies because I have to use I get a compound that's, you know, for my knees and stuff, and it takes care of some of the pain. There's only 2 people in the entire state that can do the compounding. Growing up, every pharmacist was able to compound. Right. Yeah. No longer.
And make a nice soda.
It's right here. And a nice soda.
A float.
Right.
A root beer float.
So tell me about the hospital situation. So we've got a corporation coming in, buying a hospital in Epping?
Yeah, well, they've bought several. Yeah.
And then shutting it down.
Yeah, for cost reasons.
Cost.
So the question is, the seller of the hospital agreed to be sold. Is it because they were going to go down anyway? They were going to go out of business anyway?
I mean, that's one theory.
It could be the shareholders.
But the other thing,
let's make this money on this and sell this and get out.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is...
And then so why would they buy something just to shut it down.
Because they closed their competition down.
Well,
so
they
bought their competition.
but you've also got an emergency structure. You know, you've got infrastructure here. A hospital, I would think, would be different than just buying your competition and shutting their doors.
Like Walmart, yeah, it
right?
did all the small
right?
stores.
Walmart buys up Kmart and says, "Okay, you're done. It's us now."
Yeah,
right.
Right. That's. But a hospital, I view as infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right.
Public
Hospital, I
safety,
view
yeah.
as something that, you know. You can build a hospital using eminent domain, and folks know that what my feelings are on personal property rights.
So let's suppose.
So that's where I'm looking at this hospital,
Right.
and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is an infrastructure thing for a rural area that needs a place for emergency services.
Yeah.
So Josh, your comment was, why would you buy it, right? Or why would you sell to them? Because if you're looking at it from a marketing position, now I'm going to bring higher technology into a small area. Right? I can't do it alone, but I can do it with a big corporation to help me put X-ray equipment in and cancer center.
I absolutely get that.
Yeah,
but then they surprise you.
I'm asking, what is
but
the
then
very
there's the other
specific
part
situation
that
that occurred here? Like, was the hospital in financial trouble? Is that why they needed to sell, or?
I don't know. I'm not versed enough on the subject to speak, but I know the effect of it. I don't know why it got that way, but I think that we need to look at, to your point, it's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
And I think that for every there's got to be a formula for however many residents for so many miles.
And population.
It's like VA, within 50 miles.
Yeah.
You should be able to get treatment within 50 miles.
Yeah, or for emergency rooms, you should be able to get there within X amount of minutes.
Yep.
There should be something like that. But it's difficult when you start telling private companies what to do. You can't force someone to open a business.
No.
So.
Well, it's like these convenient MD places, medical places. You go in there, and then they do what they can, and they said, okay, we're going to send you to the Elliott ER because that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
And you go over and sit there for 10 or 12 hours. I mean, they haven't figured it out yet.
And you got billed twice.
Yeah, right. And they feed all this stuff that, I mean, that's, to me, that's a big issue, is healthcare.
It is. We see a whole bunch of these
convenient
urgent care centers, and it's not just that one company. There's all kinds of. It's a huge thing, and so there's
some of them are right in the pharmacies.
The whole point of these urgent care centers is to release pressure on the emergency rooms at the larger hospitals. But to your point, that's exactly what I'm seeing. I've seen family members go to urgent care because this really shouldn't be a big deal, and then they get sent to emergency room every single time.
And you know what they tell you there?
It just becomes a feeder system.
Yep. And what they tell you there is, well, you're really not that sick to be here. And I said, well, I didn't ask to come here either.
Yeah.
You know, I went to urgent care. This was a while ago. I went to urgent care first. They said, you need to go to the hospital now. We're going to call them, make sure you're there. And I get there, and then all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. You know, I'm the bad guy that said, well, ERs are really only for people that are really serious problems. And I'm thinking, I spent over 40 years in this industry, and you're telling me that?
So the question is, are they not investing enough in the urgent cares to fulfill what they're supposed to? Are they not putting the machines that they need?
There's not enough people,
the tests, because oftentimes it's, well, you need an MRI, we can't do that here. Or you need to get this blood drawn.
Or you need a PET you need blood drawn right away.
And we need to know the results right away.
Yeah.
And they only pick up here twice a day.
Right, exactly.
Because I will call my doctor's office and say, hey, I got this going on, I'm feeling kind of this.
Yeah.
Head over to urgent care. I'm like, well, why can't I just come see the doctor? Well, we don't have any appointments, go to urgent care.
Yeah.
And then you go to urgent care, and then, to your point, they got to send you to the lab at the hospital.
And and that's where we're failing here in the state, I think. I mean, we're trying to do something about it, and we're fortunate enough that we have a couple of really good hospitals that we can rely on if we had to, like, Dana-Farber Cancer Center. Everybody in the world knows about Dana-Farber and how well they treat. So they buy a hospital here, or they make a partnership, and now you want to go to that local hospital because they're tied in with people who know what the heck they're doing.
Dartmouth is the same way.
And Dartmouth is the same way.
And Mass General bought up a bunch of things too. Now I pulled up somewhere the other day and it said Mass General. I was like,
I mean, Keene, the hospital in Keene, I believe, is now Mass General.
Well, no, it was in Dover, I think. I took my son to go get a throat culture because he had a sore throat. And he was worried it was strep.
Yeah.
And we went there and they did the rapid test and then they sent it out. It worked pretty good that time. Yeah. And a shout out to the VA. The VA urgent care over there is great too. I've gone over there several times. and they have the machinery. And
Yep. I mean, we're fortunate there too for our veterans. I mean, they've done a great job.
I'd like to see a full-service hospital in New Hampshire. We're the only state in the country now that does not have a full-service hospital.
Right, and there's a lot of reasons. I could argue both sides of that.
Oh, sure.
So let's explain what a full-service hospital is. Because, I
Surgeries,
mean, we've got Elliott, we've
cardiac.
got CMC.
No, I meant a VA one.
A VA.
Yeah, the veterans
Yeah,
hospital.
you're looking at
VA
cardiac.
hospital. Gotcha.
Yeah, full service, because you can go to a VA hospital in Boston, and they will do everything that Mass General Hospital could do.
Yes.
But here, you look at the building, you're like, wow, no, it's all offices, really. It used to be back in the day, apparently.
Yeah, it was a full service one, but the thing it's about what you touched on was getting people. Where do you get the person to work that hospital, right? I mean, at one time, all of VA that's the wrong, not generically, but many of the VA hospitals only had doctors that had served in the military.
Yeah.
And had seen everything possible. That makes them a better physician, makes them a better surgeon, and used to do that. But those guys are kind of by the wayside now. So now you have to be able to put a plan together, again, marketing your hospital, to get the best and the brightest to come to your hospital. And if you can say, we dealt with this at the University of Maryland when I was working in that area, and if you can tie into the VA, there was a bridge, University of Maryland, Baltimore VA, just like this far. There was a bridge. They were connected. So when we couldn't buy, when you couldn't sell, let's say, Maryland, University of Maryland, a CT scanner, or they could buy the CT scanner and the VA couldn't. The deal was they would get all those patients to go there. And the VA got money for a PET scanner at the time. And so they were now able, and it wasn't in the area. So now you can move those patients there. There's ways to do this. A lot easier than we're working on it now.
Synergies.
Yeah, it is. It's about synergy. The whole thing is how do you recruit the best and the brightest?
Well, nursing is a prime example right now. Nurses, we have this whole thing right now going on. A lot of people don't know. It's traveling nurses. We have nurses come here renting rooms and staying for 3 or 4 months at a time to fill the gaps in our nursing care because we can't staff the nursing jobs. And because they're either not paying right, because they don't have to pay benefits. When they get these traveling nurses, it's a straight.
That baffles me because I know so many nurses.
And they make good money too.
And it baffles me that we're actually still short.
Well, I can tell you, New England College last year put in a program for nursing. They've already graduated these kids. They're working at Concord Hospital, doing their internships.
We need to be careful that we don't graduate them and then they leave the state.
Well,
we want them to stay.
But isn't it true? Isn't it true with all of the best and the brightest in the state? We lose them because they're not skiers. They hate the snow. They don't want, that's what happens. And then there's people, older people, senior people who come up here to get away from all of that, get away from the city, but you want your health care.
But what's interesting, at the top of 2 topics we've hit tonight, the big problem is the federal government. Education, they're in charge of mandating what we do in education, and therefore they're running us into the ground. Healthcare, they're the ones who say that if you go to an emergency room, they have to treat you, and if you don't have the money, too bad. So they're bankrupting hospitals. They're making it so these giant corporations are the only ones who can work. Our farmers, same thing. Federal government they pay farmers not to not farm.
Right.
I mean, so if you look at the top problem for every issue facing just about every state in this country, it's the federal government at the very top. If we were on our own, we'd figure it out.
Get it out.
Well, there's somebody who is a accomplished businessman who understands privatization, who's running for office right now, and actually not too long ago, within the last couple of weeks, he did make a comment about getting rid of the Department of Education.
Yes.
He did make that comment because he understands exactly
and all the teachers who are taking advantage of it panicked. The rest of them said,
they're all panicked, right? So now you got the teachers, the NEA, and
it's not in the Constitution.
It's
there's
not.
No place in there that says "and educate." Just like the decision in New Hampshire that said, they took the word "cherish" and turned it into we're going to turn them into scholars. That's not what they meant when they said that. And so,
reasonable people like Donald Trump in there to take those steps. Now, do I believe that the Department of Education is going to disappear completely under Trump? Probably not. But the fact that he made a comment like that means that he understands that a revamp is necessary. And you know, and it reminds me of the Reagan administration. When he came in, and I remember this, I remember the outcry, the absolute outcry. Ronald Reagan eliminated a cabinet position.
Yeah.
And
which one was it?
It was the U.S. Postal Service.
Ah, that was a cabinet level at that
right?
time, yeah.
The Postal Service had a cabinet position, and he said, that doesn't belong in the White House.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not doing that, right? And he disassociated the Postal Service from the presidential, you know, realm
Cabinet,
of responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's simple moves like that, simple thinking like that, that I'm hoping Trump comes up with for some of these.
Well, we have his
issues
record,
that we're talking
and
about.
he put Betsy DeVos in there, and she did a really good job over there. She didn't close it, but of course, he couldn't do anything his first term because the whole time he was just busy trying to be investigated and impeached.
Well, that
He's
was
smarter this time.
That was the other point I made, I think, last week, was that this time around he knows the game, right? You know, the entire reason we put him there was because he's not a politician, and we don't want that to continue. And you know, there was this whirlpool, this storm that he encountered, and but he's learned now, right? I mean, he's had plenty of time to figure it out, and he knows that's the other side, is who you thought he could trust. There was a whole bunch of closet rhinos up there that he thought he could appoint, that he now knows he can't.
Yeah,
and
you can't trust someone just because they're wearing a uniform and have stars on their shoulder.
Right.
And he's learned that the hard way, unfortunately. So you won't see a lot of generals, I don't think, appointed to cabinet level positions this time.
Probably not.
And he shouldn't be. I don't think the Secretary of Defense should be a general. There's a reason we have civilian control of our military, and that should remain. The top person in charge of the military should be a civilian who reports to the president. It shouldn't be just a rubber stamp another general in the line. So I think if you remember back to Reagan, Caspar Weinberger was one of my favorite guys. And him and Schultz, who was the Secretary of State.
My father actually did computer work for Caspar at his place in Bar Harbor.
Wow, a small world, but he was great, and I served in West Germany at the time under him. I never went to bed wondering if my president had my back, ever. Weinberger was over there all the time. Reagan came. I mean, they just let us know that we have your back, military. You fulfill your job, and I'll fulfill mine. And that changed with
We
Bush.
need more of that.
We do.
Absolutely need more of that.
We do. Do you ever hear the story of George Bush Sr., about his wartime service? I just heard it recently. It was fascinating.
There's a few things that are pretty amazing.
Yeah, he got shot down.
He was shot down and swimming around until a submarine picked him up.
Yeah, he got shot down, and with 4 other planes, they were all coming out after bombing an island, and he didn't crash. He didn't bail out right away. Like everyone said, bail out, bail out. He said, no, hold on, we got to get further out into the water. So he did, and because of that, he survived. Because the ones that bailed out when they got shot, got captured. They were cannibalized.
Yeah, they were captured and eaten.
And eaten. Yeah. So he dodged that, and a submarine popped up next to him in his little raft. But when I heard that story, I was like, wow, you know what? I give him a lot of credit. He wasn't one of those guys like his son who just, and God bless him for protecting his son, whatever. But he doesn't have the military chops his old man did.
Right.
Yeah, Senior had some stories. I mean, and then he went on. He became the director of the CIA.
CIA director.
He had, he understood the world.
Yeah. He did.
He had an unfortunate term. His no new taxes just come back to bite him in the butt.
Yeah.
Read my lips.
Yeah, he got politics ended up biting him in the butt. Is right.
Yeah.
But he was okay. He and Reagan didn't get along. He picked him as kind of a unity type ticket. Reagan was kind of a Trumpian, almost outsider type, a real conservative, and Bush was more of a Bush, that party, and an establishment type guy. So there was no love lost between those two, which was also surprising.
But they got a lot done.
They did.
I mean, it doesn't happen too much anymore.
No, but I would stay away from CIA guys from now on. I heard Trump mention Pompeo again. Trump mentioned Pompeo again last week, and I was like, no, don't bring him back in.
Yeah, there's a few things that he's coming up with that I'm like, wait a minute, didn't you learn your lesson? But I still feel better about his second term.
Oh yeah.
Right. And here we are. We're still 2 weeks away. We need to think about. I'm a pessimist, so
Yeah, I'm looking at property in Texas, to be honest with you. If things go south, so am I.
I don't know. There's Austin, Texas is starting to spread out
But
here,
it's-
in their influence.
Other
and
than
that's
Alaska,
not
it's too
good.
cold for me.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other place
that won't work.
you
That
know,
won't work.
Texas,
So-
Arizona. I'm waiting to see how Arizona does this election.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting there.
Yeah, there's a lot of places around the country that we need to watch. Arizona, Nevada, all those states in that region in there. Because if Kerry Lake wins, that's huge. And
So we only got a couple minutes left. So
Again,
I
already?
won't bore everybody with my conspiracy theories.
No,
we
I
like
for
those.
too long.
Yeah. We like those.
But we're gone through this business of 2020 and all of these stolen elections, and I firmly believe that some of them were stolen.
Yeah.
Right. You've got it was either Nevada or Arizona passed a law since that election outlining certain types of ballots that couldn't be validated.
I think it was the signed signatures.
Right, and
Yeah.
there were 44,000 of those ballots that actually got counted in
Enough
2020.
to swing the vote.
Yeah.
And that's enough to swing the vote, right?
Yep.
Trump only lost by 30,000 votes.
Yeah.
So now they've actually implemented a law. So now you can actually go back and say, wait a minute, that state was stolen.
Yeah. Otherwise, why
Right?
did we have to do that? Yeah.
And so when we talk about the stealing, I've said that they're going to try and maybe not steal the presidential race or not be as visible about it this
Yeah.
time around,
Yeah.
and maybe go for all of the state level or not the state level, the congressional level stuff.
Yeah.
Because if they can
Congress
steal
and
those
Senate.
races
Yep.
and then spread the blame, right? Like now we have 435 races that we have to think about whether or not they were stolen or not.
Yeah.
But if they could do that, then that's their counteract to Trump being president.
All
Now
they need is a couple.
Now nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
Right?
Or worse, we're back to impeachment.
So my question is, what has to happen? What has to go wrong, and how wrong does it have to be for us to say, hey, wait a minute, this was stolen this time, and this was bad, and is anyone going to stand up and have the backbone to say, yes, Arizona was stolen this time around, or the Senate race in Wisconsin was stolen this round?
Yeah. Or
Is anyone
Pennsylvania.
going to? How bad does it? Yeah. What happens? I mean, Pennsylvania. We're seeing a lot of Pennsylvania just falling for Trump right now.
Yeah.
But if it goes down for Kamala
At
in
midnight.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
who's going to stand up and say, hey, that's bad?
It should be the
and-
state legislatures. That's their job.
And do you think it'll happen?
I think so. I think this time, if it doesn't, I think you're going to see unrest. Like, I hate to use
That's
this,
what I'm getting at. Is
to
like,
see Trump's
what
words
has to go
like you've never
wrong
seen
for the
before.
unrest to take place, and will it? Like, are we facing something like that this time around?
I think we are, because people are at the point where they're like, what's left? I mean, if they can just steal this in my face, right in my face, and no one's going to do anything about it, what's left? And I think you're going to see unrest, like scary stuff. I hope the Democrats don't drive us to that point. That's what I hope, because they'd be the ones. They can't. You can't just keep poking a bear with a stick and find when the bear turns on you. Say that's a mean bear. No, you poked it. Stop poking the bear. That would be my advice to them, because what happened last time, in retrospect, is so blatant that anyone who says it, oh, you're an election denier. You're damn right I am. I deny that was a legitimate election all day.
All right, we are at time. We've got one more show before the election, folks, and who knows what will happen between now and then. Thank Terry for coming
thanks,
on.
Terry.
Anytime. I love you guys.
JP,
It's fun.
and we'll see you next week.
Adios.